Hey everyone, welcome back, or if you're just joining us, welcome to KSSP Podcast. I'm Spencer.
And I'm Katie.
And in this final video of our difficult conversation series, we're just gonna kind of be going over some closing remarks that we had that I guess we have on difficult conversations. So what I'll just kind of start out with is while I was kind of looking up information on difficult conversations and like tips and all that, what I learned is that people need to know how to have a crucial conversation. That's important, as we all know. But I think an aspect to also consider is the other person, because I feel like most of the tips that I ended up seeing didn't consider the other person's how they would respond. Some of them did, though, as we mentioned, but a lot of the ones that I initially was looking into more so considered your response, which is important, obviously, because the only person that you can control is you. But I just think it's important to consider the other person when you're having a conversation about difficult conversations. I feel it doesn't matter how well sometimes, especially in a work situation where it doesn't matter how well an employee can handle the crucial or difficult conversation if the boss cannot, especially in a situation where the boss has a power dynamic over the employee, whether or not the employee can handle the conversation well. If the boss can't, then that can lead to worse outcomes for the employee. Whereas if the boss was able to take the conversation well and the employee wasn't, then it'd more so be a situation where potentially the boss is letting the employee vent, or not necessarily letting them vent per se, but just the fact that in that situation, if the boss can't handle the conversation, the difficult conversation, if they aren't mature enough to have that conversation, then they could fire the employee if they get upset. Whereas if the employee is the one who can't handle it, the boss can more so act maybe as a mentor, kind of, because usually the leader. I guess you like bosses, we like to think of as leaders and guides and or we would hope that they would be like that, because they're the boss of us. So we'd want them to be able to help us in that and be more mature. I guess I always would be under the assumption that the boss is the most mature in the situation. That, in my opinion, that's how it should be. It's not always that way, but that is how it should be. And just that power dynamic, again, I feel is more dangerous when that person in power doesn't know how to effectively have the conversation versus the employee. Now, again, everyone needs to be able to have these conversations and not worry about getting fired. I still believe it's more important that people in charge and power have a better handle on their emotions and know how to have difficult conversations just due to that power dynamic.
Yes. And as someone who's managed a team, like someone who's been a manager in the past, I would prefer someone to confront me on an issue I'm having rather than not. Especially if it hurts to get, or sorry, even if it hurts to get the criticism, it's important to process the criticism in order to be a good leader. And a good leader shouldn't use their power to take out negative feelings on an employee ever. That's just not acceptable.
Yes, agreed. And then another area that I feel was briefly mentioned, but not as brought up, I guess, then I was looking into it, that I still think is very important, especially dealing with difficult conversations, would be politics. And just because there's so much polarization right now that it feels almost impossible for people to just have a conversation. If we want to progress as a society, we need to work on having difficult conversations for the betterment of society. Now, that doesn't mean forcing each other's beliefs onto each other, nor do we, in my opinion, need to fully understand the other side, but we at least need to be able to have these discussions. If we can't, well, then I'd be concerned for society as a whole.
Yeah, instead, we should be having conversations on our beliefs and why we hold them and why it is best for the good of both ourselves and others. There are compromises we can come up with if we're just willing to listen to, to each other and see why others hold the beliefs that they do. And it's not always easy, but it's something that is definitely important to do.
Yes. And I feel like that is especially where that tip on finding similarity can come in. Because at the end of the day, whether we want to admit it or not, we're all humans. We're all going to have similarities. That doesn't negate or excuse anyone's belief that could be very damaging to others, obviously. But at the end of the day, we're all humans. So we need to work on finding those similarities so that we can have conversations. And then also just in any kind of relationship, whether it's romantic, friendship, whatever, it's important to be able to, and I guess obviously with bosses too, or any
And like
employee.
coworkers, yeah.
Any relationship really. It's important to be able to speak openly, honestly, and effectively.
Yeah, difficult conversations are extremely important to have. Whether you're someone with a non-confrontational nature like me, or you're someone who tends to let emotions drive these conversations, difficult conversations are a skill that anyone can benefit from practicing. Remember that even if you don't act perfectly or the other person doesn't react in the way you'd hope they would, these conversations are still important for maintaining relationships with others. And that concludes our series on difficult conversations. So we would just like to thank everyone who's been watching, liking, and sharing. We just want you to know we really appreciate you.
And we are just really excited to have you guys along on this journey with us as we see, I guess, where KSSP podcast goes. So we're excited. And as always, you can leave a comment below if you have any topic ideas that you want to hear us go over in future episodes.
Yeah, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And we also occasionally do Twitch live streams. So follow us there to get notified of when we do.
And don't forget to give this video a like, as well as follow or subscribe to our other social media accounts and turn on notifications so that you get notified of when our future or other content comes out. Otherwise, we will see everyone next time.